Hello everyone, today we are going over the origins and the history behind the movie of The Nun, which is a demonic entity that we saw in the 2018 horror movie, which was another movie created around Ed and Lorraine Warren. So the very first important note about The Nun is actually not based on a true story at all. I was expecting researching this movie and hearing some really crazy things, because so far we've researched about the Enfield hauntings. That also included Ed and Lorraine Warren in a way, but they weren't very involved in the case whatsoever. They showed up for like one day. So The Nun is actually just an entity that Lorraine was seeing. So of course, unlike horror films like Annabelle, Robert the Doll, and all of the Conjuring series, this film is actually just telltale fictional, but it was inspired from some sort of paranormal background. And this is where the Warrens come in. So, if you don't know who Ed and Lorraine Warren are, they're popular and famous American paranormal investigators. And The Nun is inspired from a haunting that Lorraine was going through. She kept seeing an entity. It didn't look like a nun in real life. This was just how they wanted to portray it in the film. But yeah, Lorraine was seeing this entity a load of times, so they actually included this entity in the Conjuring films as well before The Nun was created. So they kind of already brought this character to life before giving it its own independent film. And the purpose for putting The Nun in these films was just to kind of show how Lorraine's abilities work. Even if she's working on other cases, she can get visions or she can see entities that are going to be coming up in the future. So sadly, Edward Warren died in the early 2000s, I believe 2006, and Lorraine died more recently in 2019, which was 1 year after this film was created. So when Lorraine was speaking to producers in the filmmaking industry, she actually described this haunting as a swirling tornado vortex with a hooded figure, and filmmakers saw a really great CGI opportunity in the movies, but they just eventually decided to step it down a little bit and just make it like a physical character. So that's when they came up with The Nun. So you can see it's not completely accurate. They're just kind of taking inspiration and then making it up as they go through the writing stages. So anyway, that is how the inspiration started. And one of the directors that was very involved in creating this idea was James Wan. So the twist is, James Wan took inspiration of a specific demon. It wasn't the one Lorraine was seeing. In fact, we don't really know what Lorraine was seeing. All we know is that it seemed to kind of follow her around. So now, the demonic origins that James Wan came up with actually stems from mythology from around the 15th to 17th century. So all from one biblical book of 72 demons. I don't think I need to repeat that. That is a lot. So this biblical book is called The Lesser Key of Solomon. Now, the word Solomon was believed to be a king from around the 2nd century BC, who shared his supernatural encounters he had in a book. He was also said to be a man of wisdom and a lot of knowledge. And he was also seen as a very magical person. He shared his secrets of magic into a book, including the 72 demons that vanquished during his reign. Now, supposedly, he was teaching people how to expel them, but I find it ironic that you can conjure the demons ultimately. Like, the book is teaching you how to summon these demons, so it's kind of like you're creating a problem and then also giving out a solution by teaching people how to expel them. Why would you need to teach people to expel something when they haven't conjured it? Unless, I guess, it appears in your life for some reason. Maybe I guess that's the answer. Whatever the reason might be, this actually inspired astrology and many other spiritual activities throughout time. So Solomon can also translate to man of peace, friend of God, or peaceful, depending on the translation and where you look at and what dictionary it comes from. There's some of the definitions. Some also say that in the book, not every single entity in there is evil. Apparently there are some good spirits, but they are called demons, so I'm not sure how true that is, really. I don't know, the word demon to me is something sinister and evil. So, with the demons, the book also contains a mix of spells, conjurations, and witchcraft, and in some religions, the book is actually banned from the church, especially in Christianity. However, some Catholic churches do keep it. Now, why is this important to the movie? Well, the director took inspiration from Lorraine's story from the 60-second demon from the Lesser Key of Solomon. Now, depending on the Greek manuscript or timeline of the biblical study, the names of these demons can differ, but the names are believed to be known as Valak, kind of spelled in different ways. There are some other examples, and I'll put them up on the screen. There's loads of different kinds of names, and historians have tried to link them all to one demon specifically. Now, this demon is actually mentioned in sources as early as the 1500s, but it's best known from around the 17th century. So in a 19th century depiction, the demon is seen as a child riding a two-headed dragon with angel wings on its back. The demon is described to take any male form and will never form as anything female. The demon will mostly be visible and seen as a young innocent boy, and it takes this form to gain the trust of people around it. Now, this demon is said to control 30 other demons within it, and its power is conjuring serpent snakes and finding treasure. It's also said because of its power, the demon itself can find serpents easily and warn people of danger in that regard. Now, due to the nature of the demon, religion has blamed it for tragic events in history. For example, in 1212, there was an event known as the Children's Crusade. Now, a crusade is a person who will preach to other communities that share different belief systems, so typically from different countries altogether. This was very common in medieval periods, and it was a form of biblical wars. So people were still debating religions all the way back from centuries ago. So remember, there's no internet these days, so people are going to start traveling far and wide to convince people of other nations, some more peacefully than others, and some where they're going to start unpeacefully, trying to persuade people to change their belief systems, change their religion, and to where they try to take lands. So, the Children's Crusade was actually a failed event by European Christians who wanted to establish a second Latin kingdom of Jerusalem in the Holy Land. Now, I won't get too much into that, but the attempt was basically to convert Muslim beliefs to Christianity, for example, which of course both are still a thriving community in modern day. Now, crusades sort of stopped around the 1500s. I guess modern day crusades could be described as people debating their religions over the internet. So where is Valak blamed in this? Well, like anything, there are multiple stories and speculations, but one of the stories states that there was a boy, an innocently seeming boy who convinced 30,000 other children his age to start a crusade. The aim again is to convince Muslim culture the ways of Christianity, and with that, he leads the followers south towards the Mediterranean Sea in the belief that the sea would part at their arrival, sort of like the story with Moses. So this would have allowed him and his followers to walk straight through to Jerusalem. However, the sea does not part whatsoever, which leaves him and all of his followers sort of stranded. Now, at some point when they're stranded by the sea, the children are approached by two merchants, Hugh the Iron and William of Posqueras, who give free passage on boats to as many of the children who are willing to travel. Now, remember, this is supposed to be 30,000 children, and there's only two merchants, so that is a lot of boats and a lot of event organising going on there, first of all. I'm not going to try and argue with biblical studies, but this is a good reason why I'm not very religious. We're going to keep that out of this video. However, all the children who boarded the boats were sold into slavery and taken to Tunisia by the merchants, and the rest of them would have just died to shipwreck. Like, there's no way that 30,000 children are going to make it there without some sort of accident going on. It says that in the story as well. That is why many people believe evil played part in this event by Valak, because of course they were just supposed to spread Christianity, but instead they got sold to a slave trade. so very dark. Now, Valak comes into play because he's known to disguise himself as a child. If we remember, a child convinced all these other children to start a crusade, so that is why that demon is blamed for that event and many other events as well. Now, of course, nobody knows the truth or if these demons actually exist. Either way, I don't want to find that out. Now, going back to the movie of The Nun, they're just referencing this as an inspirational idea because Valak the demon never once appeared as a nun or is said to have, even though it has the power to take form of anything that it wants. The movie has its own storyline altogether, its own identity and intentions compared to the mythology the movie references, which is why we said earlier it's all just inspiration to make a terrifying movie. It is especially engaging as using a nun as the appearance of evil is an oxymoron to people's faith and belief systems. So, the actual storyline of The Nun is based in the 1950s, Transylvania, in Romania, where a priest is sent to cloistered abbey to investigate the suicide of one of the nuns. Now, of course, in their religion that is a sin, so it is unusual. Now, a novitiate is also sent with the priest by their city, the Vatican, where they risk their lives and faith, and they confront a demonic, unforeseeable force. This was the same entity referred to in The Conjuring 2 as well. So I find it interesting that horror films can even skyrocket with fictional writing, which is just amazing. So many horror films are based on true stories, and The Nun was able to achieve the same level of fear fictionally. I wish there was more interesting paranormal activities and interviews to share with you, but this isn't the sort of case. Basically just great story writing with a dazzle of mythological inspiration. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting. It certainly is interesting, to me anyway. And I'll see you in the next video. Stay spooky.